Krishna if you're not ready. Like Gabriela said, that the Radharani song really moved her the first time she heard it, even more than the Maha Mantra. Isn't that amazing? She was ready for Radha. Radha ready. Radha darshan. Yeah, Hare Krishna. Yeah, we have to be ready. Yeah. Anyway, Krishna
Tanya said that she hated the Hare Krishna before.
Yeah, that's the other side of attraction.
Yeah.
A lot of devotees didn't like devotees. But by not liking them, it means you're thinking about them, right? Those Hare Krishnas are crazy. Yeah. And Prabhupada said that's good because you say Hare Krishna. And you're thinking about them like, Kamsa's thinking.
Yeah.
So any thinking of Krishna is purifying. It's better to think favorably, but. Okay, so we can start. I'm not going to chant because we only have an hour.
Okay. We are already live on Facebook.
Yeah, I just got to do something with my router. Maybe it'll stop me from freezing. I don't know. That's possible. I guess not. Anyway, Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste. Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharini Nirvisesa Sundari Paschatidastarani. So we are continuing extracting nectar from this book. You can get this online. I mean, you can get it. It's a digital download just by Googling Srila Prabhupada's Tributes. Well, it was good. It froze at that point. Yeah. Okay. Hare Krishna. So I'm going to continue reading from where we left off. And some things we will discuss, and some things I think are self-evident. They won't really need much discussion. Yes. Mr. Seti helped you in many ways to complete the building of your temple for Radha Rasa Bihari. You told Mr. Seti that you considered it your duty to provide accommodations for your disciples. Then you revealed to him the marvels of serving you. Quote, just as you are building these rooms for my disciples here at Hare Krishna land, Lord Krishna is making your rooms ready in Krishna Loka. I am a sinful man, Mr. Seti replied. How can I go to Krishna Loka? Prabhupada said, that I will see to. This is not your duty. I will see that you go to Krishna Loka. So there's always this question of who's going to go to Krishna Loka and who's not. And Mr. Seti was not initiated. We told this story before. And he didn't feel qualified to be initiated, but Prabhupada felt that he was qualified to go back to Godhead, and that Prabhupada appreciated his service so much that he said, you don't have to worry. And so this principle, it's an interesting principle. It comes up in other places where we're worried about certain things. Will I go back to Godhead? Will I be able to follow my vows? Will I be able to do this and that? And Prabhupada said, you just make the effort and Krishna will do everything else. Like even with following your vows, Prabhupada said, you just make the effort and Krishna will give you the strength to follow, as long as you have that determination. It's interesting, isn't it? Like, I'm so weak, I can't follow. How am I going to follow? No, that's up to Krishna. That's Krishna's business to give you the strength. You just keep your vows. You just do it. Isn't that interesting philosophy? It's not even like your business. Don't worry. Krishna will give you the strength. Your business is just commit to your vows and then he'll kick in with the strength. You commit to Krishna consciousness. will I go back to Godhead or not? You don't have to worry about it. Just like you don't have to worry about whether you're going to eat or not. If you give yourself to Krishna, or whether, am I going to make spiritual advancement if I just surrender? You don't have to worry about it. Just surrender. That's the point. And no, ananyas chintayantamam, Krishna will take care of the rest. We have this company in America. It's a bus company. And they have an ad, or they used to have an ad that something like sit back and relax and just leave the driving to us. You take a bus, you don't have to drive. It's a little bit like that. You just do your duty, you do your sadhana, and leave the rest to Krishna. Will I make advancement? Will I go back to Godhead? Who knows? That's up to Krishna. It's like we're such controllers. We want to control everything. You just do what Prabhupada says to do, and then like the rest, don't worry about it. But I'm not advancing fast enough. All right. Krishna will take care of it. What are you going to do? Jump up and down and scream? And that's going to make it better. You just do the process the best you can. And then the rest, don't worry about it. Have you ever worried before about something, and that something you're worried about just showed up? Oh, I'm late for prasadam. I wonder if there's going to be any prasadam. If you get there, there's like 26 buckets of sweet rice, 300 buckets of gulab jamuns. Yeah. And then you tell yourself, why am I worried so much? Krishna always provides. You ever have that experience? Yeah. Some of us like to worry. That's just how we were born. If we don't worry, we worry that we're not worrying. Those kind of people. Puts them in anxiety not to worry. So if they're not worrying about something, they're stressed out. So some people have that nature. But in Krishna consciousness, all you have to worry about is following the principles. And after that, you don't have to worry about the result of that. That's up to Krishna. I'll never go back to Godhead. How do you know? It's not up to you. What verse? I'll never go back to Godhead. Can you show me the verse? I'm following all the principles, chanting my rounds, I'm doing seva. I'll never go back to Godhead. What verse is that? I never saw that verse. Devotees are expert at making statements that have no support for verses. Out of fear or worry, they say things and there's no support in Shastra. It's like their anxiety erases all the verses they ever memorized or read. So that's the idea. You do your best, and then you don't have to worry about everything after that. That's Krishna's business. So that's what Prabhupada's saying here. Let's read that again. It's so nice. The last thing Prabhupada said. How can I go to Krishna Loka? That I will see to. This is not your duty. I will see that you go to Krishna Loka. It's not your duty. What do you mean? It's not, I always tell you should all go back to Godhead. Now, Prabhupada's saying, it's not your duty. In other words, it's not your job, You're like you work in a company and something's going wrong and you're complaining about it. They go, it's not your job. Just do your job, right? So, just, if you do the right thing, then you're doing the right thing. So what more are you going to do? Just do more of the right thing. So we have a very special spiritual master in Srila Prabhupada who will just say, do this, and I will take care of everything else. I will take care of all the stuff that you cannot take care of. Then you just take care of the stuff that you can take care of. Right? That's pretty good, because if we had to take care of the stuff we can't take care of, we would all give up, because what's the point? Okay. Now you remember, you may remember a previous class in which I said that it is worse to associate with sannyasis who are blaspheming devotees than drunkards. And it was actually from the Chaitanya Bhagavat, and I have the quote here, so I thought I'd just read it. Okay, fasten your seatbelts, everyone, because this is heavy. Maybe we should have it so heavy, maybe we should have a countdown. 10, 9, like this is a blast off verse. 3, 2, 1. If an assembly of sannyasis indulges in blasphemy, then that assembly is more sinful than an assembly of drunkards. If the topmost community that abstains from worldly good and evil activities, and that belongs to the highest ashram of the best sampradaya, engages in blasphemy of the Vaishnavas, then it is to be understood that such a community is more sinful than a sinful community of drunkards. What does that mean? Well, it means that's not expected of Vaishnavas. So it's like, a lot of times you may read something and it says if a devotee does this, it's very abominable or very horrible, or there'll be sinful reaction. But if an ordinary person does it, it's kind of normal. That's what they do, right? So that's what this being said. It's like when you come to the level of identifying yourself as a devotee and committing to practice it, then when you do the wrong thing, that wrong thing is multiplied many times over. It's like you can be whoever you are, but if you become a teacher, even in the material sense, you have to be moral, you have to be exemplary, because you're dealing with impressionable young people. That's your job. When you have any position of authority, you have to be beyond reproach, right? Above suspicion, isn't it? If you're caught abusing women, abusing children, and you're in a high position, any position, but especially a higher position, sometimes you'll be fired, and before you're fired, you usually quit, because it's it can't fit within a position where so much respect is given. So what is expected of Vaishnavas is something very great, and therefore it becomes more sinful. Isn't that interesting? More sinful than the assembly of drunkards. But they're drunkards, they're drinking. Yeah, well, hello, that's what drunkards do. They drink. That's why they're called drunkards, right? But they're drinking and that's bad. Yeah, well, who said they were trying to be good? Right? But you're trying to be a Vaishnava and you're blaspheming. You're worse than they are. We've talked about this before, and it's such an important point. How I'm a devotee, I'm better than everybody. Well, not if you blaspheme, not if you don't live like a devotee, then you're worse than everybody. One time Prabhupada said, if someone doesn't become a devotee, that's a great misfortune for them. But if someone becomes a devotee and then leaves, it's a greater misfortune. So, I don't have any money and you don't have any money. We're both poor, right? But you're more unfortunate than I am, because yesterday you had $1 million and you lost it in some investment. So we're both at zero. We're both the same. But so why are you considered worse? Because you lost your fortune. I never had a fortune, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, now that you're devotees, much is expected of you. As the Bible says, to those who much is given, much is expected. Right? So, that's the price you have to pay. Let me just, excuse me, I'm gonna hit that magic button again on my router. Maybe it'll get it out of first gear and at least second gear. Hold on a second. Sometimes that magic button actually works. Okay. It's almost like this verse is saying, instead of being a hypocrite, just be a drunkard. Just be degraded, but don't pretend you're not. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to be degraded, just like, okay, that's fine. Not fine, but don't pretend you're like something special. If that's what you are, that's what you are. Okay, that's what I am. I admit it. I'm not the best person in the world. I admit it. But when you take the position, you want to be called a devotee. Tanya, you're not a devotee. How dare you call me not a devotee? No, we want to be called devotees, right? How would you like it when someone says, you're not a devotee, you're an asura? No, okay, so you want to be called a devotee, you want to think of yourself as a devotee, okay, fine. So act like one. At least try. And if you don't, if you act like an ordinary person or worse than an ordinary person, then there's a reaction for that. Okay. Just have to find the other pages. Okay. I started rereading this book because the first part of the book, I didn't note anything. I got inspired, actually. I got so inspired reading this book this morning that I wrote my 2022 Vyas Puja offering. Here's a little insider secret. The best time to write your Vyas Puja offering for the next year is on Vyas Puja Day, because that's when you're most inspired. Otherwise, you get this little note, write an offering, and you're like, what am I going to say? But on that day, you got plenty to say, right? So by reading this book, I got inspired. I wrote a poem, actually. I'm not really a poet, but I wrote a poem. I got inspired. Mm-hmm. Listen to this. Okay. Some of your sannyasis were traveling so much. So Krishna has shown you that just as much, if not more, preaching can go on using modern day internet facilities. It will help if you become accustomed to change, that this may be the beginning of a significant shift in how the world will be in the future. He's talking about coronavirus. And he's speaking like Krishna is speaking to him, or Prabhupada speaking to him. It is now Lord Chaitanya's age, and for the floodgates of love of God to make a significant impact, some adjustments are necessary. We will need to do the needful for preaching to go on. However, any external environmental change cannot check our preaching. But Srila Prabhupada, I was isolated, having no association with devotees for an extended period. Is this healthy for my spiritual life? And here's an actual quote from Prabhupada, which all you people who like isolation will love this quote. All you introverts and recluses, this is your quote. For a sannyasi to spend some time in isolation has its spiritual rewards. It will help you become more independent, not from Krishna, but from the ongoing acceptance of others rendering service to you. When we feel that spiritual life is suddenly stressful, exhausting, or difficult, but continue the process anyway, that also gives one spiritual intelligence. There's 2 points here. And first, I want to tell a story about being independent. One day, Prabhupada was washing his clothes, and a devotee came in and said, Prabhupada, I could do that. And he said, no, I will do it. And this way, I can remain independent. Like, he's saying, like, don't depend on other people. It's not healthy. And then another day, he was washing the floor in his room. And the same devotee said, Prabhupada, I could do that. And he said, no, I do it myself. Better to remain independent. Not because it's, if you depend too much on others, it can become a weakness or can make you weak or lazy. Or so that Prabhupada's making the same point here. It will help you to become more independent from the ongoing acceptance of other services to you. It's not easy to accept service. If you have to be able to digest everyone's service, and everyone giving you service, it can make you think like you deserve that service, or you are entitled to that service. So that's not healthy. But the other point that is really what I got this quote. This is, read it again, this point. When we feel that spiritual life is suddenly stressful, exhausting, or difficult, but continue the process anyway, that also gives one spiritual intelligence. So, this is a theme. This is a theme often expressed by Prabhupada. That sometimes it is difficult. What does it say? Difficult? Stressful, exhausting, or difficult. Yeah. So if you haven't experienced it yet, you will. But sometimes, like getting out of Maya can be stressful, right? It's like, it's not always comfortable. And, it's easier not to change, right? So sometimes it's very stressful to change. Sometimes that's like the most stressful thing, is have to change something about the way you think or the way you behave, the habits you have, the beliefs you have. Sometimes it's like trying to bend a steel pole. So, so Prabhupada's saying here, even though we feel these things, we continue the process, then Krishna rewards us. So we should always know that. You ever feel, sometimes you might feel like, what's the use of going on? It's so difficult, I'm not making any progress. Or my service is difficult, I'm not good at it. Or I could do better, but I don't know how. I don't have that ability. Or I keep failing at the same thing and promising myself I won't fail. Stressful, exhausting, difficult, right? Stressful, exhausting, difficult. SED, S-E-D, stressful, exhausting, difficult. Or it could be S, difficult, exhausting, stressful. I like SED. The name of this class is SED, stressful, exhausting, and difficult. And whenever you're in that situation, and for some of us, it's kind of like constantly in that situation. Whenever you're in that situation, always remember, this is an opportunity to get some gifts from Krishna if I just keep going. He won't make you suffer eternally. But sometimes, of course, the suffering often is caused by our own mischief. But still, it's really a good time to get mercy. But I don't know, have you ever experienced this? You've gone through a difficulty, you've come out the other side, and then all of a sudden you feel like blessings just showering upon you because you tolerated it. It was like, Krishna, why'd you do that to me? I almost caved in. I almost, killed somebody. Krishna says, yeah, you needed that. And I'm very happy you came out on the other side. And I'm so happy, I'm going to bless you. And you look back at that and you think, I'm happy with myself that I tolerated that because there were so many blessings on the other side of the difficulty, isn't it? And when you give into the difficulty, it's like that's like a samskar, it's like it creates a pattern, just once you give in once, it creates a pattern. Just keep giving in when it's difficult. And then you chant the mantra, I hate myself. You ever chant that mantra? I hate myself. When you give in to something you shouldn't give into, that's the mantra you chant. Maybe you don't chant it out loud, but subconsciously you're chanting it. So it's not a very happy moment. But if we tolerate, and it's just amazing. The mind and the body are amazing machines. Often I think, life would be easier without a body and a mind, don't you think? It's like the body is so demanding, isn't it? And the mind, sometimes it's going south and we want to go north and we can't figure out, why are you going south? I want to go north. Of course, we can't exist without a body, either spiritual or material, and without a mind. But if you could imagine what it would be like to have a spiritual body, you want to go north, it goes north. In fact, it goes north even before you tell it. What a life that would be. So we don't have that. And so it requires lots of tolerance. It's just the way it is. And, I don't know what else to say other than it's just the way it is. And therefore tolerance is necessary. Hold on one second. I'm just going to see if there's more to read in this excerpt. Okay. If we become slack or neglect these things, that's our sadhana and service, then everything else we may try will fail. Oh yeah. This is really important. Let me read that again. I'll start from the beginning of this paragraph. The routine work, such as rising early, chanting, cleaning, cooking, offering prasadam, arati, reading books, speaking, these activities. I have to give Rasika a break. Did you pick up on that? Chanting, cleaning, cooking, offering prasadam, arati, reading books, speaking. These activities are the backbone of our society. If we practice them nicely in a regulated way. Some people say regulated, regulative, regulative, in a regulative way, in a regulative way, the regulative principles. Then our whole program will be successful. If we become slack or neglect these things, then everything else we may try will fail. In other words, Prabhupada saying, what you try to do to spread Krishna consciousness, if it's not based on these principles, even though externally it may look successful, it's going to fail. You got the building, you got the money, you got the people, you got everything, but if you don't have these principles, what do you have? What are you giving them? A shadow, a cotton candy, Krishna conscious cotton candy, there's nothing there. Just, it's just fluff. It looks like it, but no one's actually getting purified. That's the point. So Prabhupada's saying, you can have all these things, but no one's going to advance. No one's going to become purified. So you'll fail. Correct? You must keep your standards very high in these activities, and then your preaching will be strong. And what kind of preaching are you going to do if you're not even following what you're telling other people to do? Preaching is our real business. It will help you become more dependent on Guru and Krishna. The Goswamis also did everything themselves, and you can follow in their footsteps. When I came to the Western world, I too spent 1 year alone without friends or money. Yes. Hare Krishna. Okay. So now I have a quote here where Prabhupada's talking about his own difficulties that he went through in that first year. It was so difficult. Could you imagine? Just imagine, you're not even going to New York to preach. You're just going to New York. You're the only devotee in America, and now you're alone, and you've just come from Vrindavan. Like, We have a hard time coming from Vrindavan back to the temple in the West, isn't it? Because it's so amazing in Vrindavan. You come back to the temple in the West, it's like, it's not the same as Vrindavan. So you're with devotees and still you're feeling separation from Vrindavan. So you imagine coming, there's no temple and there's no devotee, you're all alone. Is that difficult? Well, you could say, well, it's not difficult for Prabhupada. Of course, he could do that, but I'm saying difficult in the sense that there's no association and there's no Vrindavan, there's no temple. Okay, so this is what Prabhupada said. As the saying goes, separation makes the heart grow fonder. During that time in New York, when there was some inconvenience for me, I remembered Vrindavan. Should I return or not? Should I return or not means I shouldn't return, but I was thinking of returning because it was so difficult in America. The only thing that kept me from leaving was the order of my spiritual master. Otherwise, I had no business in such a dangerous place, materially dangerous and spiritually more dangerous. Besides that, how else would I have understood his desire to please Krishna? How else could Krishna understand the kind of separation? No, well, that's the end of that quote. So here's something we can imbibe in our own life. You know that point? You hit that point where you feel like, I don't want to do this. This is too difficult. It could be a service, not that you want to give up Krishna consciousness. Certainly, Prabhupada wasn't saying that. He was just thinking, this is so difficult to preach in the West. And he really was thinking of Vrindavan, and he was missing Vrindavan, and he definitely was thinking of going back. I mean, he actually wanted to go back. He didn't really want to be there. So what does Prabhupada say? The only thing that kept me from leaving was the order of my spiritual master. That is amazing. Prabhupada wanted to go back. He didn't want to be there from his personal point of view. He didn't want to be there. It was too difficult. Prabhupada left this amazing situation. And then he comes to New York. Like what Braj Basi wants to be in New York in 1965 all alone? Nobody. So that's what Prabhupada's saying. I didn't want to be there. The only thing that kept me there was the order of my guru. So sometimes, if not all the time, sometimes when there's difficulty and we persevere, it's only because of the order of the guru. Personally, we don't want to be there. Right? Okay, so that was some food for thought. We have a shorter class, so I will take some questions. And if there's time after we answer the questions, I don't think there's a lot right now, then we can go back and read some more. So first question from Matthew. Oh, yeah, we're talking about Krishna. You do it and Krishna will do the rest. Don't be attached to the results. Well, one concept is don't be attached. The other concept is don't even think you can produce results. There's many things you do that you have no control over the results at all. Anyway. That's a hard one for a conditioned soul to get their heads around, isn't it? I mean, I came into the material world to be God, and now you're telling me there's so many things I can't control. Yeah, that's what we're telling you. It's going to take time to adjust to that, right? It's kind of like you have kids and tell them, you can't touch this and you can't touch that. And kids, their reason for existence is to touch everything. So it's hard. After you tell them not to touch it, what do? They're even more inclined to touch it, isn't it? Anyone who has kids knows that, right? If you don't have kids, you will find out. So it's kind of like Krishna saying we're not the controller. What do you mean? I can't control my results. What do you mean? That's what I came here to do. That's why it's hard. Sydney says, the purification process is not much fun, but necessary. I just know my heart will be worth it. Yeah. And guess what, Sydney? It will become fun soon. The fun part of Krishna consciousness is when the austerity becomes fun, when you actually like to do it, when you actually become miserable if you don't do austerity. I have a godbrother. He loves austerity. The worst thing you could ever do for him is to make him comfortable. He would like go into a state of depression, because like I'm just comfortable. I'm not making any spiritual advancement. If I discipline myself, if I sacrifice something, I do some tapasya, then I become purified. So, you might say, does he really like suffering? No, but he likes the result of suffering, which is more advancement. So that's the idea. It's the idea of tapasya. It may not feel good, but it feels good after because you get Krishna. So Krishna Karshani says, Karshani, Krishna Karshani. You are saying that we should not criticize other devotees. So it means that we should be completely blind for other faults. Is this from another class, from the last class or today's class? Because this was the topic of another class. Should we be completely blind to the faults and mistakes of others? It's from another class?
Today's class.
Today's class. Was I talking about this? Or it's from, I think she's thinking from yesterday's class. The answer is yes and no. Sometimes you should be and sometimes you shouldn't be. Especially like sometimes somebody's fault may actually drive us completely crazy if we think about it, isn't it? This is better, don't think about it. And obviously, if you can't do anything about it, then why think about it? I mean, you can tell somebody, tell the right person, so-and-so is doing this, we have to stop it. But if what that person is doing is causing you to become offensive, then it's probably better don't think about it. Just let someone else think about it. In some cases, there's nothing we can do. So then thinking about it it's detrimental and impractical. I think if you summarize everything I've said about criticism, it was basically saying, if you have to do it in a safe environment, meaning you're not committing offense to the devotee, and do it in a way that it's productive. It's going to actually resolve the situation. But if even doing that is going to be detrimental to you, then it's going to backfire on you. And if it's going to be detrimental to the consciousness of the community and degrade the community, then we have to be careful or create some huge controversy and split and division. So the point is, there is a, if we, this sounds funny, if we respect the person we're criticizing, then we can pull it off. If we don't, it's going to be troublesome. I respect you, you're a great devotee, but you said this, I disagree. And I think what you said is harmful and that shouldn't be allowed. Okay, I'm concerned about other devotees, but I respect you and I approach you humbly, or I approach leaders humbly about this problem. Then we're okay. But otherwise, criticism it's like Prabhupada says on the Royal Road. The Royal Road is a British term for a freeway, basically, a freeway in the United States, or a motorway, called a motorway in England. In America, we don't call it a highway. A highway is a smaller road. The freeway is the big road. Highway could have sometimes cars driving across it, and the freeway, you go. So we'll use the word freeway, motorway. I don't know what you call it in your country. Turnpike. What do they call it in Germany? That one? What's it called? The something bond. You can go as fast as you want. Yeah. So, they have these big roads. In America, you have lots of freeways, 5 lanes on each side, so 10 lanes, huge. And so the example Prabhupada gives in the Bhagavad Gita is that even on these roads, even though, they're designed for safety, to get you somewhere quickly and designed for safety, because there's no stop signals, no stop signs, no cars going across, which is where most accidents happen. Well, maybe that's not true. Maybe now I think it's the freeways. I'm not sure. But anyway, they were designed to be safe. So Prabhupada said, even on those roads, there could be accidents. So, I cut my finger the other day. It's healing, but I cut it on one of these machines that slices vegetables. So along with slicing tomato, I sliced a little piece of my finger off. Yeah. So, and my wife said, oh, after I sliced it, she said, oh yeah, I should have told you. That's really sharp. I go, thanks for telling me now. So that's like, okay, this machine is great. It slices, fantastic. I sliced very thin slices of tomato for my sandwich. But you have to be careful. So, when we see a problem and we have to deal with it, we have to be careful, because on the royal road, there's accidents. That I am trying to stop this devotee from becoming offensive or offending devotees. And I have to be careful not to become offensive in trying to stop someone else from becoming offensive. Have you ever seen that? How someone, maybe you have done it yourself, you become offensive in your effort to try to stop someone else's offense. So that's I think the royal road analogy is applicable there, although that wasn't the exact reference, but it relates. Like Krishna says, Kamosmi Bharatarshava. I am lust. Wow. Sounds like a license for Krishna's lust. Okay, how do you get Krishna in your lust? Oh, it's easy. You just chant 50 rounds, Hare Krishna. In one day a month, you try to conceive of a child after praying. That's Krishna, right? Anything else? You're on the royal road, but there could be an accident. So it's like, One devotee, Hayagriva, when he first heard Prabhupada say that, he was like in shock. It was like, 50 rounds once a month. You might as well not even do it. And Prabhupada said, that is the point. So you might as well, it's like, Hare Krishna. Yeah, that's the point. You're just doing it to have children. So you got to be careful, because, you do it to have children, you may want to do it to not have children. It may, become a new kind of sadhana for you, right? Like the commercial of these, crackers, but you can't eat one. It's impossible to eat one, because once you eat one, you eat 2, 4, 8, 12. So you can't eat one. It's not, you ever take prasadam? And it's impossible just to have a little bit of it. It's so good. Here, just taste this. It's so good. Give me more. I want more. You're like a heroin addict, looking for a fix. So, just take a little bit. You only get a little bit. Everybody gets a little bit. And, you're dreaming about it. And, you're opening breaking the locks on the Maha cabinet to get more. So you have to be careful. That's the point. So because fault finding is kind of addicting. It's like, I don't know, maybe Gabriella knows this or can do a test. They're like dopamine levels go up when you fault find, or what goes up that makes fault finding so juicy. It's like one of the nectars of my life. I mean, look at all the news shows and radio talk shows. It's all fault finding. And everybody loves to hear it. You know, if you have a nice show with good news and glorifying people, it's like boring. Give me the nectar. I want to hear like all the bad things that politicians are doing. Isn't it? There must be some kind of hormonal surcharge that comes from some addictive substance, isn't it? Because it's so hard to stop criticizing. It must be addictive. That's my theory. What do you think? You think criticizing is addictive? Feel you're better? Yeah, of course. Yeah, fault finding is an elixir for the false ego. Maybe that's it, you know, like it's a hormone for the false ego. Yeah. So anyway, whatever it is, you understand my point. So you have to, that's why I think Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in general just didn't listen to criticism. He's just like, he didn't, I think he was afraid that it's an addictive substance and he didn't want his disciples to become addicted. So even though something was wrong, he just like, don't talk about it. Which for us as Westerners is, how could you not talk about it? It's wrong. You got to talk about it. You got to call a spade a spade. We got to deal with this. That's our Western mentality. So when he doesn't listen to a criticism, we're like, how could he do that? It's not fair. You know, that's not politically correct. You know, you've got to deal with this is an injustice. Just, you know, he's looking at it from a different perspective. He's looking at this is an addictive substance, criticism, and we have to cut it off. So obviously, Prabhupada even said that, you know, if you call a thief, it's not a criticism. It's just what happens after you call the thief a thief. Then what do you do? Then tomorrow you call someone a thief and it's not a thief. Now you're in trouble. You know, it's got this addictive habitual tendency, doesn't it? I'm on a roll, Prabhu. I'm criticizing everyone that comes in front of me. It's something like that. You know when a person's angry, whoever walks in front of them, they scream at, isn't it? You come and smile at, why are you smiling at me? Get out of here. So addiction, you know, fault finding can be that way. You start getting into it, you just fault anybody and everything. Have you ever been in a fault finding mood where you could find like 1,000 faults a second? You ever been in that mood? It's like some special dysfunction, you know, of, I don't know what it is. Low self-esteem is, you know, it's hit the threshold and now you just like find fault with the universe and everyone in it. Yeah. So, you know, I think that's the point. I think that's what we have to be careful of. The addiction. Fault finding is addictive. Sounds like another t-shirt to me. Fault finding is addictive. Are you hooked? Prabhu, I'm experiencing fault finding withdrawal. I need to find some more fault with people. You know, it's like I'm really depressed right now. Then I find fault and like, I feel good. You know, my ego's pumping now. Yeah. If you have to pump your ego by fault finding, you got some serious trouble. That's all I can say. Isn't it? Fault finding is addictive. Just say no. Say no to fault finding. It's addictive. Yeah. But Prabhu, I have to get my little, can I have a little dose, you know, little dose, just a little bit, you know, little less every day till I stop. Yeah, well, yeah. I don't think so. It's not. Anyway, it's interesting. Hare Krishna. Okay. We have a question from Prabha Satyanarayana. She is saying, that's what Bhishma and Dronacharya did. Blind, and they kept quiet towards the injustice happening to Draupadi. Sri Krishna didn't like it. So I get confused when I'm asked to keep quiet, when even senior devotees make mistakes. Yeah, it depends, you know, if it's a normal human mistake or it's a transgression of morality. Yeah, if you saw a woman being disrobed and didn't do anything and say anything, yeah, but you should be hanged for that. But, if you didn't see it and you just saw a devotee like smile at a girl and you go, oh, I'm reporting him to the president. He smiled at a girl. That means they're having private relationships, and then you start making things up. That's the problem. So again, there's this fine line between helping, criticizing, and blaspheming. So, we have to have the discretion. And I think for some devotees, it's probably best, even if they see the girl getting derobed, not to say anything, because by them getting involved, they'll probably destroy themselves because they're so critical. Have you ever seen that? Like they can't participate in such things in an even way, and they get destroyed trying to do it. So, you have to understand your own weaknesses, your capacity, and how you can best do it. And I think also you have to understand where you are, what part of the world you're in. So you're in the part of the world where women's voices may not be appreciated as much as women's voices in other countries. So that's also part of the problem. And, even though you want to say something, you might think, yeah, but they don't want to hear from a woman, where in another temple in another country, they'd be like happy to hear from you. So that is also a consideration. And maybe you're in a situation where you're a younger devotee and they're not going to believe you. You're not initiated. You've been a devotee for 800 years, but you're not initiated. We don't listen to uninitiated devotees. Whatever you say doesn't mean anything to us. So you have to understand, who you're dealing with also. So many factors. But it's interesting. Why, sounds like we're so concerned to get a license to criticize. Why can't I criticize? It's not fair. Things are going bad. Things are wrong. Okay, I understand that. Understand that mentality. I appreciate it. I bring up things that are going wrong all the time to authorities. I have eyes, I see it. It's disturbing. But I think we also have to learn the art of, once we do that, letting it go and not letting it bother us. So if you have a tendency to not be able to let go of things, it's probably better you just don't even get involved in the first place, because it'd do more damage to you. So, that's something to understand. And again, I think we can meditate on why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta did not like devotees finding fault. Even sometimes Prabhupada didn't like it. And I think the reason is he saw I think what he didn't like was the mentality behind it, because sometimes when Prabhupada didn't like it, what was being said was actually true. But it just reflected a bad mood. Prabhupada didn't like the mood. So he just, this one story I told him, devotee was criticizing the GBC. Prabhupada said, get out of my room. I don't want to hear this. Wow. This was a leader who was doing so much and dear to Prabhupada. And it was actually disturbing Prabhupada to hear it. So obviously, you don't want to go to your guru complaining about some devotee that's done tons and tons of service that has served their spiritual master, served your spiritual master. Your spiritual master may not want to hear it, even though what they're doing is wrong, because it's just, it's like, you come to me and you complain about my daughter. It's not like I want to hear that, So you have to be sensitive to all these things. Okay. Autobahn, yeah. There are accidents even on the Autobahn. How come I couldn't think of, all I had to add was auto to bond? That was like a senior moment for me, wasn't it? Anurada says, I think behind fault finding is that you feel better. You are better than the other person you're talking to. Also that you are an authority for them. Fault finding makes you miserable. Your energy gets down, yeah. So both things are true. First, you get power from fault finding. And then that power erases your spiritual Shakti, and then you feel like empty. Your ego gets power and your soul gets covered. So, it's a trade-off, I don't really think that trade-off is worth it. What do you think? You get some, vitamins for the ego and some covering over your spiritual life, some, dirt over your heart. Probably not worth it. Yeah. So if you see, another point also, Krishna Karshan, is if we're dealing with these issues and we can't take our mind off it, it's going to disturb us. Because if what the person did is disturbing and you keep thinking about something that's disturbing, then generally you get more disturbed. So that's why I say we have to be able to deal with it and pull out of it. Otherwise, it's going to drain us. So I feel great. I just found fault with someone. I feel like I'm top of the world now. I'm the best thing that ever happened, right? But isn't that why we came to this material world? To feel like we're the best, isn't it? And isn't it strange that humility is the essence? And we're so inclined to fault finding, which is diametrically opposed to humility. That's an interesting meditation for you, isn't it? I need Prabhu, can you give me a license to criticize? I really need it. I really want it. Can I just have it, at least for today? Can you give me one? You don't want a humility license? No, not today. I need the criticism license. See, that's the problem. We're always talking about, but why can't I criticize? Things are wrong. What about, why don't we complain about, why can't I become humble? So, I'm not talking practically, I'm talking philosophically. So we understand practically, we do have to deal with problems. But also, if you listen to me enough, you know that when you call a thief, I don't call that criticism. I'm not calling that criticism anyway. But in a broad sense, we can call it criticism if you become critical, if that makes you critical. Okay, he stole something. I'm telling my president, Bhakta Burfi stole the Maha last night at midnight. So, all right, that's what happened. We want to stop it, right? But if by doing that, it instills within me the tendency to start fault finding with other people, it's dangerous for me. The other thought is, okay, Bhakta Burfi stole the Maha, but do I really want to get him in trouble? Is it that important? I'm not going to get any Maha for breakfast. I will live through it. Maybe I don't want to get him in trouble. Well, let's see if he steals it tomorrow night. If he doesn't, let's just forget it. It's not that bad. So there are different considerations. Right? Hare Krishna. Fault finding is addictive. Just say no. Okay. Another t-shirt. We should create the fault finding, the what? Helping, 12 steps. 12-step program for fault finders. So I think the conclusion here is there's a fine line between helping and fault finding. And sometimes you can't actually help the situation. Have you ever experienced that? Like you point it out and the people you pointed out to are like, just go home and be quiet. Right? What are you going to do? Okay. So I think we have to end class here. Maybe we can talk about humility. I was actually thinking about it.